Dallas, where Mike Zimmer is meeting the Cowboys about their defensive coordinator position. His defenses were really good when he was the head coach in Minnesota.
He's been away from football from a long time, but it's not crazy how parallel it is with him and Mike McCarthy.
The Dallas Cowboys just made a huge decision, and a lot of fans don't know how to feel about it. So before we get to the content, this is our second upload of the day. Make sure you drop like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all that out of the way, work! For the Super Bowl, PrizePicks is blessing us with an easy way to make $100. All Patrick Mahomes needs is one passing yard in the Super Bowl for a square to hit, which means he's pretty much a free square. First, download PrizePicks and use my promo code Mikerophone when you sign up to get up to $100 deposit match on your initial deposit, and then make these picks really quickly before they change the lines on them. So for me, I'm pairing Mahomes' free square with Isaiah Pacheco, who's had at least one touchdown in his last 5 games, so that's easy, and Christian McCaffrey, who has had more than 88.5 rushing yards in 4 of his last 5 games. Of course, I give away all my picks for free on Instagram, and I highly recommend you turn on notifications for my Instagram story so you can get the picks quickly before they move the lines and you lose your advantage. And thank you, PrizePicks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? About a week ago, Dan Quinn officially accepted a head coaching gig with the Washington Commanders. A remarkable position to get, and honestly, I'm really happy for him. The Washington Commanders have the number 2 overall pick in the NFL draft. They have a ton of cap space. They have a very talented wide receiver core. They have a great running back. Their defense is very underrated, and they've been making splashy additions throughout the offseason, whether it's hiring Adam Peters from the San Francisco 49ers as their general manager, or getting Cliff Kingsbury as their offensive coordinator, which, wait, Cliff Kingsbury coached Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams thanked him on Instagram. Something happening there? Should we make a video on that? Let us know in the comment section down below. But an individual that had no idea that any of this happened at all whatsoever is Tony Pollard.
Your guys' defensive coordinator obviously got the head coaching gig in Washington. I think you guys are still going through the process.
See, I hadn't been on social media. I got rid of Instagram.
Did you just find out you lost your defensive coordinator?
I just found out right now. I don't doubt Dan Quinn at all and whatever he's doing, head coaching, defensing.
But with that being said, a lot of Cowboy fans had mixed feelings about Dan Quinn leaving. On one hand, Dan Quinn was solely responsible for the Cowboys going from one of the worst defenses in the entire NFL while rooting for the likes of Aldon Smith to watching Micah Parsons become utilized in a revolutionary fashion by Dan Quinn, who completely remade his defense that was dominant during the Legion of Boom era around the strengths of the Dallas Cowboys. And the reason why some fans don't know how they feel about it is because, well, the way the Cowboys went out was so pathetic and so sad. I mean, we were the number 2 seed in the NFC. We had home field advantage throughout the entire playoffs, except once we inevitably had to face off against the San Francisco 49ers, of course. We didn't lose a single home game all season long, and then Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers put up nearly 50 on us. It was embarrassing to say the least, and whenever you interview Cowboys players about it, it just gets more and more embarrassing. I mean, listen to what DeMarcus Lawrence had to say as an excuse for why the Cowboys didn't perform well in their final game of the season.
You mentioned how you wish your team was here. What happened?
Honestly, I think the main thing is we was burned out, man.
So at the same time, there are some Cowboy fans that just don't like Dan Quinn as a result of that. The way he went out was really sad and really pathetic, and I could also understand that as well. But needless to say, at the end of the day, Dan Quinn has left. He's joined our division rival. He's their head coach. They're trying to build something special there. And the Dallas Cowboys had a huge hole open at the defensive coordinator position. And by the time that they started searching for potential defensive coordinators, the options weren't necessarily the splashiest options, to say the least. I mean, on one hand, you had Jerry Jones coming out and saying that he is interviewing Rex Ryan. Wait, what? Yes, the Dallas Cowboys interviewed Rex Ryan as their new defensive coordinator. Jerry Jones said that this was not a token interview. Rex Ryan has been out of coaching for a while. He's great as a studio analyst, and I think he's very entertaining, but he hasn't been a head coach since he was coaching the Buffalo Bills almost a decade ago. And the other option for the Dallas Cowboys was an individual that they were very familiar with, a man by the name of of Mike Zimmer. Now, most of you may recognize Mike Zimmer from the time that he was the Minnesota Vikings head coach from the 2014 to 2021 season, where he was able to make it to the NFC wildcard game in 2015, then went 8-8, then was able to make it to the NFC Championship game in 2017 following the Minneapolis Miracle by Stephon Diggs, sorry Saints fans, before losing to the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Divisional game in 2019, and then having a 7-9 and 8-9 record following that. In 2021, Mike Zimmer was let go, primarily because since the Minnesota Vikings weren't able to make it to the promised land, they just wanted to bring in one of those mini McVays, a young offensive-minded head coach that can make the most out of Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook. But believe it or not, Mike Zimmer's history goes way, way further than that. As a matter of fact, Mike Zimmer first got an opportunity in the NFL with the Dallas Cowboys in 1994 as a defensive assistant. And then from 1995 to 1999, he was the defensive backs coach before being the defensive coordinator from the years 2000 to 2006. Now, the Cowboys of the early 2000s were absolute garbage. I would know because they were my first Cowboy teams, and they had a really good season in 2003 defensively, but for the most part, they weren't necessarily the greatest defenses. Of course, Mike Zimmer since then has had significant amounts of experience, but the reason I'm bringing all this up is because the Dallas Cowboys have made their decision on who their next defensive coordinator is going to be, and it's Mike Zimmer. Yes, according to Tom Pelissero, the Cowboys are expected to hire Mike Zimmer as their defensive coordinator. Per sources, Zimmer, 67, is the third winningest head coach in Vikings history and long respected for his defensive prowess. A big hire for Dallas, where Zimmer previously coached from 1994 to 2006. So how do I feel about this? Well, I'm going to give you guys a heads up, man. Whenever it comes to defensive coordinator hirings, a lot of it's just going to go based off of gut feeling, especially when it's a head coach jumping back in as a defensive coordinator. I think Mike Zimmer's a good coach. He had pretty solid results with the Minnesota Vikings during his tenure with the Minnesota Vikings. And to be honest, it's not that far off from the type of hire that Dan Quinn was when Dan Quinn left the Atlanta Falcons to be the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. It's a similar type of hire, only I would say Dan Quinn was more disgraced when he left the Atlanta Falcons for the Dallas Cowboys than Mike Zimmer is. The only issue I have here is the fact that one, Mike Zimmer is pretty old. He's 67 years old, so I don't know how long he could stay at this position. Two, I don't necessarily know how I feel about an individual that coached us in the early 2000s and only yielded one top 3 defense in the 6 years that he was coaching us. Of course, you could blame many different aspects of the Dallas Cowboys then. We were rebuilding. We had Dave Campo as a head coach. And then eventually Bill Parcells was our head coach, and maybe that was the reason that we had that one good year. But the way I like to think of this is I would prefer Mike Zimmer being hired in this particular instance, an individual that has experience, an individual that has had a proven track record as a head coach in previous instances, than some younger individual that we're hiring from within, because the Dallas Cowboys defense has a lot of good players on it, and you want an individual that can make the most out of this defense. So at the end of the day, I don't think this is like a gigantic home run, but I don't think this is going to make the Cowboys significantly worse. If I had to rate it out of 10, I would say it's a 7 out of 10. This could be what the Cowboys need to get back on top. It's definitely a nice bounce back from Dan Quinn, and when you really think of it, the Dallas Cowboys haven't been back to the Super Bowl since losing Mike Zimmer. So let me know in the comment section down below. What do you guys think about all this, man? If you're a Cowboy fan, how do you feel about this hire? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.